Victoria, Alexandrina Victoria, May 24, 1819, January 22, 1901, was Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland from June 20, 1837 until her death. Parliament voted her the additional title of Empress of India in 1876. Known as the Victorian era, her reign of 63 years and 7 months was longer than that of any of her predecessors. It was a period of industrial, political, scientific, and military change within the United Kingdom, and was marked by a great expansion of the British Empire. Victoria was the daughter of Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathearn, the fourth son of King George III, and Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. After both the Duke and his father died in 1820, she was raised under close supervision by her mother and her comptroller, John Conroy. She inherited the throne aged 18 after her father's 3 elder brothers died without surviving legitimate issue. Though a constitutional monarch, privately, Victoria attempted to influence government policy and ministerial appointments. Publicly, she became a national icon who was identified with strict standards of personal morality. Victoria married her first cousin Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840. Their children married into royal and noble families across the continent, earning Victoria the sobriquet the Grandmother of Europe and spreading hemophilia in European royalty. After Albert's death in 1861, Victoria plunged into deep mourning and avoided public appearances. As a result of her seclusion, republicanism in the United Kingdom temporarily gained strength, but in the latter half of her reign, her popularity recovered. Her golden and diamond jubilees were times of public celebration. She died on the Isle of Wight in 1901. The last British monarch of the House of Hanover, she was succeeded by her son Edward VII of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Victoria's father was Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathearn, the fourth son of the reigning King of the United Kingdom, George III. Until 1817, Edward's niece, Princess Charlotte of Wales, was the only legitimate grandchild of George III. Her death in 1817 precipitated a succession crisis that brought pressure on the Duke of Kent and his unmarried brothers to marry and have children. In 1818 he married Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, a widowed German princess with 2 children, Karl, 1804–1856, and Theodora, 1807–1872 by her first marriage to the Prince of Leiningen. Her brother Leopold was Princess Charlotte's widower. The Duke and Duchess of Kent's only child, Victoria, was born at 4:15 a.m. on May 24, 1819 at Kensington Palace in London. 1. Victoria was christened privately by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Charles Manners Sutton, on June 24, 1819 in the Cupola Room at Kensington Palace. 2. She was baptized Alexandrina after one of her godparents, Emperor Alexander I of Russia, and Victoria, after her mother. Additional names proposed by her parents, Georgina, or Georgiana, Charlotte, and Augusta, were dropped on the instructions of Kent's eldest brother George, Prince Regent. 3. At birth, Victoria was fifth in the line of succession after the 4 eldest sons of George III, the Prince Regent, later George IV, Frederick, Duke of York, William, Duke of Clarence, later William IV, and Victoria's father, Edward, Duke of Kent. 4. The Prince Regent had no surviving children, and the Duke of York had no children. Further, both were estranged from their wives, who were both past childbearing age, so the 2 eldest brothers were unlikely to have any further legitimate children. William and Edward married on the same day in 1818, but both of William's legitimate daughters died as infants. The first of these was Princess Charlotte, who was born and died on March 27, 1819, 2 months before Victoria was born. Victoria's father died in January 1820, when Victoria was less than a year old. A week later her grandfather died and was succeeded by his eldest son as George IV. Victoria was then third in line to the throne after Frederick and William. William's second daughter, Princess Elizabeth of Clarence, lived for 12 weeks from December 10, 1820 to March 4, 1821, and for that period Victoria was fourth in line. 5. The Duke of York died in 1827, followed by George IV in 1830. The throne passed to their next surviving brother, William, and Victoria became heir presumptive. The Regency Act 1830 made special provision for Victoria's mother to act as regent in case William died while Victoria was still a minor. 6. King William distrusted the Duchess's capacity to be regent, and in 1836 he declared in her presence that he wanted to live until Victoria's 18th birthday, so that a regency could be avoided. 7. Victoria later described her childhood as rather melancholy. 8. Her mother was extremely protective, and Victoria was raised largely isolated from other children under the so-called Kensington system, an elaborate set of rules and protocols devised by the Duchess and her ambitious and domineering comptroller, Sir John Conroy, who was rumored to be the Duchess's lover. 9. The system prevented the princess from meeting people whom her mother and Conroy deemed undesirable, including most of her father's family, and was designed to render her weak and dependent upon them. 10. The Duchess avoided the court because she was scandalized by the presence of King William's illegitimate children. 11. Victoria shared a bedroom with her mother every night, studied with private tutors to a regular timetable, and spent her play hours with her dolls and her King Charles Spaniel. 12. Her lessons included French, German, Italian, and Latin. 13. But she spoke only English at home. 14. In 1830, the Duchess of Kent and Conroy took Victoria across the centre of England to visit the Malvern Hills, stopping at towns and great country houses along the way. 15. Similar journeys to other parts of England and Wales were taken in 1832, 1833, 1834 and 1835. To the King's annoyance, Victoria was enthusiastically welcomed in each of the stops. 16. William compared the journeys to royal progresses and was concerned that they portrayed Victoria as his rival rather than his heir presumptive. 17. Victoria disliked the trips, the constant round of public appearances made her tired and ill, and there was little time for her to rest. 18. She objected on the grounds of the king's disapproval, but her mother dismissed his complaints as motivated by jealousy and forced Victoria to continue the tours. 19. At Ramsgate in October 1835, Victoria contracted a severe fever, which Conroy initially dismissed as a childish pretense. 20. While Victoria was ill, Conroy and the Duchess unsuccessfully badgered her to make Conroy her private secretary. 21. As a teenager, Victoria resisted persistent attempts by her mother and Conroy to appoint him to her staff. 22. Once queen, she banned him from her presence, but he remained in her mother's household. 23. By 1836, Victoria's maternal uncle Leopold, who had been king of the Belgians since 1831, hoped to marry her to Prince Albert, 24, the son of his brother Ernest I, Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Leopold arranged for Victoria's mother to invite her Coburg relatives to visit her in May 1836, with the purpose of introducing Victoria to Albert. 25. William IV, however, disapproved of any match with the Coburgs, and instead favored the suit of Prince Alexander of the Netherlands, second son of the Prince of Orange. 26. Victoria was aware of the various matrimonial plans and critically appraised a parade of eligible princes. 27. According to her diary, she enjoyed Albert's company from the beginning. After the visit she wrote, "Albert is extremely handsome, his hair is about the same color as mine, his eyes are large and blue, and he has a beautiful nose and a very sweet mouth with fine teeth, but the charm of his countenance is his expression, which is most delightful." 28. Alexander, on the other hand, she described as very plain. 29. Victoria wrote to King Leopold, whom she considered her best and kindest adviser. 30. To thank him for the prospect of great happiness you have contributed to give me, in the person of dear Albert. He possesses every quality that could be desired to render me perfectly happy. He is so sensible, so kind, and so good, and so amiable too. He is besides the most pleasing and delightful exterior and appearance you can possibly see. 31. However, at 17, Victoria, though interested in Albert, was not yet ready to marry. The parties did not undertake a formal engagement, but assumed that the match would take place in due time. 32. Victoria turned 18 on May 24, 1837, and a regency was avoided. Less than a month later, on June 20, 1837, William IV died at the age of 71, and Victoria became Queen of the United Kingdom. 33. In her diary she wrote, I was awoke at 6 o'clock by Mama, who told me the Archbishop of Canterbury and Lord Cunningham were here and wished to see me. I got out of bed and went into my sitting room, only in my dressing gown, and alone, and saw them. Lord Cunningham then acquainted me that my poor uncle, the King, was no more, and had expired at 12 minutes past 2 this morning, and consequently that I am Queen. 34. Official documents prepared on the first day of her reign described her as Alexandrina Victoria, but the first name was withdrawn at her own wish and not used again. 35.